I want to talk to you about something that might surprise you. The most powerful tool you have to boost your team's performance isn't a new software, and it's not a bigger budget. It's something much more fundamental. It's trust. We're going to look at the real numbers behind trust, and I'll give you 4 practical, data-backed ways to build it with your team. And it all starts now on Engage and Inspire. Welcome back, leaders. I'm your host, Scott Liles. If you caught our first episode, you probably noticed we had some fun getting started. Our first episode was a little lighthearted and slightly silly, to be honest. But that's kind of the point of the show, is to get you engaged and inspired. Now, we ended the first episode talking about how trust is the foundation of great leadership. The data here is pretty compelling. Paul Zach's research, published in the Harvard Business Review, shows that companies with high trust levels perform 286% better than low trust companies. But even if you're not looking at stock performance, the day-to-day benefits are just as impressive. Now, let's go visit those fine folks over at Gallup. Their research show that teams with high trust report 41% less absenteeism, and they're 50% more productive. Now, these aren't just feel-good numbers. This is real business impact. Now, when Google's People Innovation Lab studied what makes teams successful in their Project Aristotle research, they found that psychological safety, which is just a really fancy way of saying trust, was the number one factor that predicted success. So let's talk about 4 practical ways you can build this kind of trust with your team. Now, the first big idea is how to give feedback that actually works. So we've all been there. We know that sinking feeling we get when we have to give some critical feedback to a team member. You schedule a meeting, you go in with the best intentions, and within 30 seconds, you can see their walls go up. They cross their arms, their eyes have glazed over, and they're staring right through you, and whatever you say next just bounces right off and lands on the floor. It's frustrating. It feels like a waste of time. And frankly, that's why most feedback fails almost instantly. The reason is hardwired into our brains. Now, when we're criticized, our brains interpret it as a social threat. It's a threat to our status, to our certainty, our autonomy. It triggers the same fight or flight response that our ancestors used to run from the saber-toothed tiger. So the person isn't choosing to be defensive. Their brain is literally putting up a shield to protect them. But what if you could disarm that defense? What if you could disarm it before it even activates? This isn't just pop psychology. The Neuro Leadership Institute has done incredible work showing that we can actually rewire this dynamic with one simple but profound shift. You stop framing feedback as a critique of the past and start framing it as an investment in that person's future. Now, let me give you some data to back this up because the results are staggering. A landmark study published in the Harvard Business Review found that when managers frame feedback around an employee's growth and untapped potential, those employees are a whopping 40% more likely to actually listen, accept, and use that feedback. 40%. That's the difference between a conversation that changes absolutely nothing and one that changes everything. And the ripple effects are huge. Research from the Center for Creative Leadership found that teams that master this future-focused approach see a 32% increase in innovative ideas. But why? It's because when people feel safe and believe their potential is recognized, they stop playing it safe. They're more willing to experiment, to suggest those wild, crazy ideas, and to take calculated risks. You're not just fixing problems, you're building a more innovative culture. So, how do you actually do this? It's got 3 parts, and we'll start with the first one. You set the stage with the potential frame. Now, before you ever deliver a single piece of specific feedback, you have to state your positive intent. So, start with a sentence like, I'm giving you this feedback because I see real potential here, and I believe we can build on it together. Or, I'm invested in your growth, and that's why I'd like to talk about this. That one sentence does 2 crucial things. First, it tells that person's brain, hey, relax. This isn't an attack. And it positions you not as a critic, but as a coach, a partner in their success. Second, you have to be incredibly specific. Now, vague feedback is useless feedback. Let's be honest. You need to anchor your observations to real moments. Break it down into a situation, a behavior, and an impact. And then the third part of this formula is to connect it directly back to their potential. Show them how changing this one behavior unlocks even more of that potential that you mentioned. So instead of just saying, good job in the meeting, which is nice, but not helpful, or you need to speak more confidently, which is critical and vague. Let's bring it to life with an example here. The future-focused version would sound something like, Braden, I'm sharing this with you because I see real potential in you as a client-facing leader, and I want to help you build that skill. That is the potential frame. In yesterday's client meeting, when you brought up those custom charts you made, there's your situation. I noticed you explained them with such clarity and confidence. That's the precise behavior. And the impact I saw was immediate. The clients literally leaned in. They started asking more engaging questions, and it shifted the whole dynamic of the conversation. there's your powerful impact. That ability to make complex data accessible and engaging is a huge strength. If we can consciously build more of those moments in your presentation, you're going to become an absolute indispensable voice in our key client relationships. And there it is, the loop back to their future potential. Do you see the difference? This isn't just, quote, nice advice. It's a strategic, neuroscience-backed approach that transforms feedback from the dreaded obligation to the most powerful tool you have for developing your people and driving your team forward. Now, our second principle of the 4 that we spoke about at the beginning is the power of being dependable. Now, dependable. Is it the sexiest leadership trait? Probably not. Does it have the flash of visionary or the buzz of disruptive? Not at all. But I want you to reframe that in your mind right now. Because what if I told you that being consistently reliable is one of the most potent, performance enhancing, and frankly, kindest things that you can do for your team? When we think about leadership, we often think about the big inspirational speeches that I mentioned in the first episode, or the bold strategic moves. But leadership is forged in these small daily interactions. It's 1,000 tiny promises that you make and keep. It's the pattern of behavior that tells your team, hey, I'm in a stable environment. I am in a stable, predictable environment. And that stability is the fertilizer for their growth. Now, the data on this is absolutely compelling. We're going to check out those fine folks over at Gallup again. After researching thousands, let me say that again. After researching thousands of teams, they uncovered a stunning correlation. They found that leaders who score high on reliability, meaning their team members can count on them to follow through, have teams with 35% higher retention. Let that sink in. In an era of constant turnover, one of the most powerful tools for keeping your best people isn't a ping pong table in the break room, and it's not a free lunch. It's the simple, profound act of being someone they can trust to do what you say you will do. But it doesn't stop there. These teams also showed a 27% higher revenue per person. Why? Because when people aren't wasting mental energy guessing what their boss wants or worrying about shifting priorities, they can channel all of their focus and creativity into their actual work. And this brings us to the most human and perhaps most important part of this research. Predictable leadership literally reduces team stress. Now, a study out of the Harvard Medical School points to how unpredictability is a primary trigger for our stress response. When a leader is erratic, blowing up 1 minute, disappearing the next, changing deadlines without warning, they create a constant state of low-grade anxiety. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. This isn't just bad for morale, it's bad for health. It impacts our sleep, our cognitive function, and our well being. A leader who is dependable, who acts as a buffer against that chaos, becomes a source of certainty in an uncertain world. This allows your team members to actually switch off at night. They sleep better. They come to work more rested, more focused, and more ready to contribute to the success of the team. You are quite literally building a healthier and more effective team. So, how do you put this into practice without it becoming another overwhelming item on your ever growing long list of to dos? Start small. Build what I call rituals of reliability. Now, don't try to be perfect at everything. Instead, just pick 3 things. Just pick 3 things that you will commit to doing with absolute consistency for the next 30 days. These should be small, concrete, high impact behaviors. Here's 4 examples here. The punctual one-on-one. So, are you going to always start and end your one-on-one meetings on time? Every time? Now, this is simple, but consistently honoring that time sends a powerful message to your team member. It says that this time with you is sacred, and I respect you too much to steal it. Or the responsive inbox. Will you commit to responding to messages within a specific and reasonable window? Say within 4 hours during the workday. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to solve the problem, but a simple response of, hey, I got it. I'm looking into it, and I'll get back to you by the end of the week. This eliminates that black hole of uncertainty. What about the Monday morning anchor? Will you ensure that by 10 a.m. every Monday, the team knows their top 3 priorities for the week? They're crystal clear and they're communicated to everyone. This provides immediate clarity and direction, and it kills that waiting for guidance limbo that just absolutely murders momentum. Now, here's a crucial key. You have to stick with it. Research into habit formation shows that it takes about 3 weeks for a new pattern to become recognizable and trusted. So for the first week, your team might not even notice. By the second week, they'll sense a slight shift. And by the end of the third week, that's when the psychological shift happens. They'll internally register, hey, things are different. My leader is predictable. And that's the exact moment the soil becomes fertile for all those benefits we've been talking about. The higher retention, the higher revenue, and the lower stress. Being dependable isn't about being boring. It's about being a rock. And when your team has a rock to stand on, they can build something incredible. Now let's talk about our third principle, the strategic power of recognition. Now, I need you to set aside any notion that giving compliments or saying, good job, is just about being a nice person. It's not. When done correctly, recognizing your team is one of the most powerful and underutilized strategic tools in your leadership arsenal. Now, this isn't about soft skills, it's about hard results. The data on this is compelling. So compelling that it's almost shocking. We're not talking about small feel-good bumps here. We're talking about fundamental shifts in performance and collaboration. Let's start with Gallup. Their massive multi-year research into workplace dynamics found that in teams where employees strongly agree they receive recognition or praise for their work in the last 7 days, there is a 45% improvement in collaboration. Think about that number. Think about how many meetings, software tools, or team building exercises you've tried to get your people to work better together. Yet, one of the most powerful levers is simply consistently and effectively acknowledging when someone does something well. See, when people feel seen, they feel safer. When they feel safer, they feel more willing to share ideas, cover for a colleague, and connect the dots across silos. But the critical part, how you recognize, is just as important as if you recognize. A seminal study from the Wharton School, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, dug into this. They found that not all praise is created equal. Now, vague, generic compliments like, "Great work, team," or a casual, "You're awesome," had very little lasting impact. They're like sugar. It's a quick hit that fades fast. However, when recognition is specific and delivered publicly, it creates a totally different outcome. The Wharton research showed this kind of high quality recognition boosts performance by a staggering 25% compared to generic praise or no praise at all. Why? Because specific public praise does 3 things. First, it makes it undeniably authentic. Second, it acts as a teaching tool, showing everyone else on the team what great looks like. And third, it taps into our deep-seated human need for status and respect in our social group, making the reward profoundly motivating. So how do you move from the generic "good job" to a more strategic performance-boosting recognition? You need a simple, repeatable formula. Ditch the vague and adopt the following. It's the name plus the specific thing they did plus the positive outcome equals your great feedback. This formula forces you to be specific to connect the action to a result. All right. So let's look at a real example. Instead of saying, "Shout out to Pam for her great work on onboarding," it's nice, but it's weak. You'd say something in your team meeting or in a company-wide channel along the lines of this: "I want to call out Pam's work on redesigning our client onboarding checklists. She noticed the old process was redundant and took the initiative to streamline it. Her new design has cut our average training time by 3 full days. That's not just a small tweak, That has already saved us about 120 hours of work this quarter alone, which means we can onboard clients faster and free up time for more strategic projects. Do you see the power in that? You've named the person, the specific action, and the tangible impact. You're not just making Pam feel good, you're teaching the entire organization what valued initiative looks like. You're showing that you pay attention to the details that drive the business. And you're motivating Pam and everyone else listening to find more ways to create that kind of measurable impact. This isn't just about being nice. It's about being smart. It's about using recognition as a precision instrument to reinforce the exact behaviors that drive your team and your business forward. The evidence is clear. When you get specific and public, you don't just create a happier team. You create a more productive and collaborative one. Now it's time for us to land on our fourth and final principle. In many ways, it's the one that ties all of the others together. It's becoming a better listener. Now, if we were in a room together and I were to ask you to raise your hand if you were a good listener, almost every one of you listening would. We genuinely believe that we are good listeners. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us are absolutely terrible at it. We're not so much listening as we are reloading. We're using the time when the other person is talking to formulate our own response, our own story, our own rebuttal. We're having a monologue disguised as a dialogue. The good news? Well, this isn't a fixed trait. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained with practice. And the payoff for that training is nothing short of transformational. Let's look at the cold, hard data. The MIT Human Dynamics Laboratory, which puts teams under a fine microscope to see what really makes them tick, found a stunning correlation here. Teams with leaders who demonstrably practice active listening are 21% more productive. Now that's a massive gain from just one behavioral shift. They're not working longer hours, they're working smarter because communication is clear and energy is focused, not wasted. But the benefits get even more granular. Research from the International Journal of Listening breaks down the specific cost of not listening well. Their studies show that effective listening reduces misunderstandings by 28%, and it cuts down on the need to do rework by a whopping 31%. Think about that. Think about the last time your team had to scrap a week's worth of work all over miscommunication. That's not just a calendar setback. That is a massive drain on morale and resources. Now, good listening is a preventative measure against that waste. So how do we move from being a, quote, reloading listener to an active one? It requires a simple, deliberate structure. I want you to try the 2-1-1 method, and it works like this. For every 2 minutes that you spend listening, your goal is to do 2 things. Ask 1 question to clarify. So this forces you to actually engage with the content and dig a little deeper. and give one summary of what you're hearing. Now, this forces you to synthesize and confirm understanding. This isn't about being a robot with a timer. It's about changing your mental posture from lecturer to interviewer and translator. The tools for this are simple but powerful phrases. To clarify, you ask things like, "What did you mean when you said X? Can you walk me through the part about the timeline again? What's the main challenge you're facing here?" And then to confirm, you summarize using phrases like, "So if I'm understanding you correctly, the core issue is, let me make sure I've got this. You're saying we should prioritize A over B because of XYZ. Is that right?" Now, this last step, the summary, this is where the magic happens. It feels awkward at first, but it's the ultimate sign of respect. You're essentially saying, your thoughts are so important to me that I want to make sure I have them exactly right. It catches misunderstandings before they become catastrophes. And the data backs this up. A study published in the Business Communication Quarterly found that teams that master this kind of structured, active listening see their meeting productivities jump by 40%. Meetings become shorter instead of those 2-hour-long rambling sessions. Meetings become more decisive, more action-oriented, because everyone leaves with the same understanding. When you become a better listener, you don't just hear words. You actually hear meaning. You hear unspoken concerns. You hear the sound of innovative ideas that would have been trampled on in a rush to speak. You become the leader people feel truly heard by, and a team that feels heard is a team that is empowered, engaged, exponentially more effective, and inspired. See what I did there? So we've walked through 4 powerful research-backed strategies to level up your leadership, and those were giving feedback that builds potential, becoming a pillar of dependability, using recognition as a strategic tool, and mastering the art of true listening. Now here comes the most important part. This is the moment where knowledge has to turn into action. This is the difference between having a toolbox and actually using those tools to build something with it. I'm giving you a challenge. I want you to really lean into this. Your challenge for this week is to pick one, just one of these 4 strategies, and commit to trying it out with intention. Now, don't try to boil the ocean here. I don't want you to try to resolve to become the perfect leader overnight. That's a recipe for overwhelming disaster. The science of habit formation tells us that mastery comes from small, consistent repetitions. So be a scientist of your own. Run a week-long experiment and ask yourself, is my biggest opportunity in giving future-focused feedback to help my team member grow? Do I need to build more trust by demonstrating rock-solid dependability with 3 small rituals? Could I unlock more performance by making my recognition specific and public and result-oriented? Would my team's clarity and productivity skyrocket if I practice active listening using the 2-1-1 method? Pick one that resonates with you the most, the one that gave you that little gut punch. And then, this is the non-negotiable. Track your results. This isn't about vague feelings, it's about tangible evidence. Data is your friend here. It will prove to you that this works, especially on those days when you feel unsure. So, how do you track it? If you're working on feedback, track a shift in project completion. After you give the feedback using the potential frame, does the next iteration of that project get delivered faster with higher quality and fewer mistakes? Jot it down. If you're focusing on dependability, track meeting effectiveness. Have your meetings gotten shorter? Has everyone agreed on the agenda? Have they stayed on track? After 3 weeks of starting and ending on time, does your team make decisions faster? Take a quick poll. If you're implementing strategic recognition, look at your next team survey scores on items like, I feel valued for my contributions, or my work is recognized. Watch to see if that number moves. If you're practicing active listening, track the reduction in rework. How many times this month did the team have to circle back and fix something because of a misunderstanding? Keep an eye on that metric. You don't need a fancy system, a note on your phone, a mark on your calendar, a quick journal entry in OneNote at the end of the day. The simple act of looking for this proof will solidify the change. The numbers will show you in black and white that you're on the right track. They will turn your subjective feelings of, this seems better, into an objective fact of, this is better. Leadership isn't a personality trait. It's a set of skills. And skills are built in the doing. So do one thing differently this week. Your team will notice. The data will prove it. And you will have taken the single most important step from being a leader who knows to a leader who grows. I'd love to hear how it goes for you. Connect with me on YouTube, TikTok, our LinkedIn page, and share your story. I'll include a link to those below. Now, I want to switch gears for a minute. We've been talking about building trust with your teams, and it occurred to me, if we're going to have these conversations about trust, you should probably know more about me and where I'm coming from. So on our next episode, I'm going to share my own leadership journey with you. Now, this isn't my way of trying to impress you, but to be real about where this advice is coming from. I'll share stories from my early days in the military, moving into corporate leadership, and some hard lessons I learned along the way. Because when I talk about building trust, it comes from real experience. The good, the bad, and the ugly. With Thanksgiving coming up, I want to take a moment to share what I'm thankful for. I'm incredibly thankful for leaders who understand what real leadership is. I'm thankful for those managers who get that their legacy isn't about hitting numbers, but about helping people grow and succeed. The fact that you're listening to this, that you're working to become a better leader, that's what makes the difference between an okay organization and a great one. Thank you for doing this important work. I'm also incredibly thankful for my amazing wife and our family, and I'm thankful for you and your family. If you're finding this helpful, please subscribe to Engage and Inspire wherever you get your podcasts. From my family to yours, have a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining me today. And remember, keep engaging and keep inspiring. Take care.